right. Thank you so much, guys, for taking your time to come and join the show. My name is Ali. I'll be your host for tonight. Tonight, actually, will be actually touching one of the most vital topic ever, as we have invited different people from different fields. We'll be having Honorable Oriel Mashumbi coming from Venda, also having Patrick Makavani, also having Honorable Lekwana, and having Professor Washir all the way coming from Kenya. I see that currently we have Honorable Lekwana and also Professor Washiri from Kenya, Honorable Patrick, and also um, our brother Oriel. They are currently trying to connect. They'll join us the show. And we also have different listeners who are listening us from different platforms. Most of our listeners are also listening and watching from YouTube and Twitter and also on Facebook. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Let me start with Albert. Okay, I see that Professor just went off. Professor will come back. Let me start with Albert. Albert, can you please introduce yourself to the house?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, my host, Mr. Malekana. And also, let me start by acknowledging and also express how glad I am to be part of today's show, and also acknowledge the listeners who are listening from different platforms, the people who are going to take part in this debate. I will also want to acknowledge your presence. To introduce myself, Mr. Malekana, I'm Mr. Kwana. I'm a teacher by profession, and I'm also politically active, somebody. And lastly, I believe in engaging so that we can find solution for problems that we have at hand. I thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Honorable Lekwana. Let's move to Professor Washiri. Professor Washiri, can you please
Can you
unmute
please unmute
and introduce
and
yourself to the
yourself
house?
to the house?
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Ali. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you,
Yes, we
Prof.
can hear
We,
you,
we
Prof.
can hear you, Prof.
We can hear you, Prof.
Good evening, Mr. Albert.
Good evening, my professor. How are you?
Professor, how are you?
Okay, thank you. I'm very fine. So, Prof. Joshua Shuri, and this day I'm grateful to be here. I'm from Kenya, uh, and I'm so much passionate about leadership. That is usually my major concern. And today we are here to discuss on the importance of voting. And so I hope that by the end of the session we would have learned so much from one another. And I love the show. Thank you. Back to you, Mr. Ali.
All right,
All
Professor
right, Professor
Washiri.
Rashidi.
Thank you so much,
Thank you
Professor
so much,
Washiri.
Professor Rashidi.
We can you try to unmute
Can you try to
Professor?
unmute Professor?
Just
Yes.
wait a little
Just
bit.
wait
Just
a
wait a
little
little
bit,
bit.
just wait a little bit.
All right. Now, what I was saying, Professor, we thank you so much, Professor. We know that you are very busy, especially, but you are always honoring our invitations in most cases when we ask you to come on board, Professor. We know that currently there are a lot of things which are happening, but you're always taking your time. Since you're still waiting for our other colleagues to join us, I'll actually ask a confirmation from you that can we start and they will find us along the way. Can we start? Then they'll just find us along the way because it looks like they're just having some technical issues there and there. Now, as we know that there is only one thing that actually can give our leaders, referring to politically, politicians, to give them power. It's only by the community members or the individuals or people by actually voting for the right political party, which will actually rule and make sure that it deliver as per what they want. Now, the main question that we'll be asking tonight, I will start with Honorable Albert. Why is voting important, especially looking on the youth of today, looking on South Africa and also looking at Africa as a whole? Why is voting important? Because we see a lot of young leaders, we see a lot of the teenagers, we see a lot of the young, let me just say youth in general. They're not actually being registered to vote. They are not even participating in the politicians. They're not even taking part any at all. The main question remains, why is voting important? Why should they vote? Honorable Lekwana, can you please unmute?
Thank you. Thank you once more, my host, Ali Malekana. Yes, to attempt to answer today's question, why is voting important, especially for local government? I think the question came at the right time, at the right moment, because in South Africa, we are about to go for local government elections. But then to answer your question in a nutshell, it is very important for each and every citizen of a country, in particular of South African, to cast their vote, or especially looking at the background where we are coming from as Africans, in particular as South Africans. Remember, my dearest host, that South Africa, in fact, Africa and South Africa in particular, were once colonized. They were denied an opportunity to choose who must rule, who must govern them. Instead, they were subjected to exploitation of what's so-called apartheid, wherein our forefathers, our grandparents, they were ruled through the barrel of a gun. That on its own, it gave birth to a political activists in South Africa in particular, or in Africa as a whole. Political activists such as Kwame Nkrumah, such as Patrice Lumumba, such as Nelson Mandela, such as Steve Biko. I can go on and on. The reason was that they were fighting so that the nation or the citizen, they can have the will to choose who must represent them, who must rule them. Prior 1994, in fact, 1994, we managed to, in South Africa, we managed to get our own independence, wherein people they were granted an opportunity to choose who must rule them in the name of democracy. Going on, it is very important. Why? Because if you vote, voting gives a citizen an opportunity to decide who must rule them. The quality of political parties in terms of what is it that citizens want and what is it that citizens do not want. It lies in the hand of citizens to choose who must govern them. That's point number one. Point number two, not voting, by the way, is actually giving a citizen the what's so-called the backslide, if I were to call it. The backslide, what do I mean by backslide? I mean citizens will be stuck with the policy of the organization that they were not liable for. Meaning, you cannot, if you do not vote, you don't even have a right to complain, because if you voted, you were not even going to complain because you shall have chose the organization that was going to lead you for a certain period of time. So meaning, I strongly believe that if people must vote, people must choose who must rule them, people must choose who is going to govern them, who's going to control their money, who's going to give them services, basically. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much, Honorable Lukwana. What a point. Very quickly, I'll move to. I also would like to welcome Wasike. I think it's Lloyd. Very quickly, let's allow Wasike to introduce himself or herself before we can move to Professor Washiri. Wasike, can you please introduce yourself? Please unmute before. Okay, Wasiki just went off. I believe we'll come back. Professor Washiri, what is the importance of voting as you had
Honorable
Honorable Albert? He
Honorable
touched
but you touched
very, very much important. He
very, very
literally
much
touched
important.
some of the critical
Some
points
of the critical
and also spoke about, I mean, mentioned some of the leaders whom we are aware of. Um, Professor Washiri.
Okay, sorry.
sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry. I had a
Yeah,
network
please go
problem.
through. Yeah. What's your just introduce yourself, sir, and tell us where you're joining us from.
Okay, I'm following you from Kenya. I'm Lloyd Wasike. Yeah.
All right. Can you please introduce yourself in detail?
I'm a student in Multimedia University, taking journalism as a course, and I've been following the debate since it started up to this time. And I know the topic we are having today is a great topic. We're going to learn from each other on why we are going to elect why we elect leaders in our nations. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much, Lloyd. Let me bring Professor Washiri. Professor Washiri, the first speaker, Honorable Lekwana, he actually mentioned some of the powerful leaders that we know of, and he touched some of the critical point. And the main question that I was asking, Professor, it was that why it's important for the youth or why it's important for our Africans to vote. Because it looks like most of the politicians, they need to actually, I could say, lobby or influence the people in order for them to vote for them, whether they buy t-shirt for them, whether they buy drinks for them. Why it's important, Professor, for people to vote? Professor Washiri.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ali, once again. I think this topic I'll also still appreciate. I've had Albert mentioning that it is very, very much relevant regarding the situation now in South Africa, and the same here also in Kenya, because currently whatever is going on in Kenya is a registration for people. So because we are having our general election next year, so and there is, I'll say that voting is very, very important. And to answer the question, number one, I'll put it that voting, voting, first of all, is a prerequisite for democracy, because voting involves public participation and competition needed for democracy. Remember, as my brother has given an example of the former days when our forefathers were fighting for the independence of most of the African states, where we did not have that independence, we did not have that right to vote, to select our leaders. And so any person will just come and say, but the colonial leaders, they are the one appointing the leaders. And so you may get somebody who you are not well with, who you don't feel like he should be your leader, and expose you to exploitation, forced labor, you see, slavery, such things during those days. And I'll say that as per now, it is very, very important for we to practice that our democratic right, because voting is a democratic right, and generations have fought for, and we take that seriously. So we cannot fail to participate in voting. Remember, number two, that voting or participating in an election has outcomes or consequences, because one has the power and the right to choose on the quality of life he need to live, and for the future generation also. So voting is the chance we have for one to analyze the problem that you have faced or you are going through and make a decision using your vote, that of course this is the leader who shall come up, make policies, who shall come up, do things, manage this government in a way that shall be able to favor you in your life, and not just you now, but also for the generation that is coming after you. I will say that voting also is important because, no, when we fail to vote, we shall be indicating that we have failed in our own choice. Because failing to vote is underwriting your own decision, and to someone else will decide for you. Remember, when you vote, you're deciding who is going to lead you. So when you fail to vote, somebody else will go vote. And here in Kenya, we usually have a saying that bad leaders are chosen by good citizens who fail to participate in election. So to mean, when you fail to go vote, you say, oh, I'll not go vote. There is somebody somewhere who will go vote, and he may vote for that person who will end up being the a wrong person who will not favor a good governance. And so voting is your own money, because remember, tax is paid by we as citizens. So if you don't participate, if you don't take that democratic right to participate and have the right leader who shall make policies, remember that those leaders are the one who, after the revenue collection, are the one who now sit down and say, okay, let this go to the health sector, let this go to the transport sector, let this go to education sector. So with the wrong leaders in place, you as a citizen, you'll be losing your money, but remember, you will continue, the revenue shall continue being collected. So voting is an opportunity for us to change, for us to get someone better to help to solve the problems in the society. When the community depends on each and everyone for us to gather up and get to vote for the right leader who we need to be. So I'll say that voting is very, very important. Thank you. Back to you, Mr. Ali.
All right. Thank you so much, Professor Washiwi. I'm not going to dwell much on that. I'm going to go back very quickly to Wasika. I believe it's Lloyd. Wasika, um, why it's important for people to vote? In a minute, why it's important for people to vote? I hope you listen to the first speaker and also second speaker. From your point of view, why it's important? As I mentioned before, that it looks like people actually need to be forced or need to be encouraged in a different way. Oh, please unmute.
Okay, I get you very well. And just to add on what Prof. Chile has said, voting is an important to change the face of the nation, or to lead to give an opportunity for the citizen to change the face of their nation. Because one of the things that the people have that to vote, it makes them have a positive impact in their lives, because voting is going to change their lives. They're going to support their living, because they're going to invest in that voting. Okay, so in voting, they're going to support their candidates and a ballot measures that can help their community and their states also, because it's a mandate for them to do that voting. Then just to finalize on it, it's important because each citizen will not be able to choose the people who will run their government without voting. So in voting, they're going to choose those people who are going to run their government, because they're going to trust them. And lastly, it is our responsibility to vote for these leaders we have chosen. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, my leader. Not sure if anyone who's on the floor, whether Professor Bashiwi, whether Honorable Albert, do you have any question or any follow-up question or anything that you'd like it to be clarified based on what the speakers on the floor they have been raising before we start to digest the questions that we're having? Okay. Silence means there's no one who's having any question. Now I'll move back to Honorable Albert. Honorable Albert, can you please unmute? There's a question on the screen. Does voting really determine the leader of the people, and how so?
Thank you very much, Mr. Malekana and our colleagues for their input. So to answer your question, Mr. Malekana, does voting really determine the leader of the people? I can say yes. The reason why I say yes, remember when we vote for the representative of us as citizens. And those representatives, they are our leaders. We trust and believe that they can carry the mandate of us as people. So basically, I strongly believe that those leaders whom we elect into power to carry our mandate, we are going to determine them through voting so that they can win. Remember, when you're talking about voting, you're talking about the battlefield wherein there is a competition of different leaders from different political organizations. So basically, to answer your question, I strongly believe that voting determines who do you believe in to carry your mandate or to deliver the services that you need as citizens. Thank you very much.
All right, Professor Washiwi.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair, once again for this opportunity. So the answer, the question which is asking if voting really determines the leader of the people, I'll answer it by firstly saying yes, but the question will be why. Okay, I say yes because in practicing democracy, leaders are selected through a popular vote. And that is why, in the beginning, when the chair Ali was mentioning that why is it that even leaders have to give you money, they have to give you t-shirts, they have to give you all that it takes, and they walk all around just to convince you that you may get to vote for them. Because they know that it is that vote which counts. That vote, that one vote that you have as an individual, when it adds up together with the other one and the other one, are the ones which are going to be counted and at the end of the day determine who is going to be the leader. And so I strongly believe that indeed it is voting which determines the leader of the people. Because if you don't, if you vote, that leader you have selected, if others also will get to vote for that leader, and the counting of the vote gets that person is the one having the highest vote, of course, he's gonna be the leader of the people. So I agree that indeed it is that voting which determines the leader of the people. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Professor. Very quickly, let's move to Wasike. Wasike?
Yes, I get you very well. On answering that, does voting really determine the leader of the people? I agree to that because one of the things that we need to understand, your vote is going to help this person you're voting for to get that post or whichever seat he's going to run for. Number two, it's going to give you a chance. Sorry for that. Number two is going to give you a chance for you or as a person to understand the value of choosing a certain leader. And after that, I can say it is true. Voting determines the leader of the people. Yeah.
Okay, no, thank you so much. Let's move to Honorable Abram Makhale. Honorable Abram Makhale, very shortly, can you please introduce yourself to the House and also answer the question that does voting really determine the leaders of the people? Honorable Abram, can you please unmute? Okay, Honorable Abram.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Advocate Abram Makhali. I'm from South Africa. Yes, voting determines the leaders of the people. Remember now, especially in democratic countries,
Actually, he's on mute. You might be experiencing some difficulties. It's not a problem. He'll just come back and join now. I'll quickly actually start the second question with Professor. You know, when we're asking the first question, that does voting really determine the leader of people? Reason for us to ask this question is that you find that there are people who are actually, Professor, you find that there are people who are actually having the qualities of being a leader, but they're not being elected. You know how corruption play a role, especially in these politicians and other things. They will elect the people, they will elect the person whom they know that they're going to work with. The person that we all believe that this person will be actually able to lead this community, the person that we know we have been working with him for a long time, it is the person that will not be elected to be a leader. The politicians, they will make sure that they will vote for their own person, whom they know for sure that if we vote for Ali, obviously Ali will listen to us. When you guys are saying that, yes, um, voting really determines really determines the leader of the people, I disagree, because some people, or maybe we might put the question in different contexts. Yes, when people vote, they determine who is going to actually lead for them. But there are other people who actually they can't vote because they already know that who will be the leader. I'll leave it like that. Very quickly, let me go to Abram, as he actually cut it off. Abram, can you please unmute? Okay, let's try very quick. Abram, can you please unmute? Okay, we're just gonna move to a second question. It looks like Abram is having some technical issues in terms of muting. I will start with Professor Washiri on the second question. Professor Washiri, why are people, for instance, like in South Africa or in Kenya or in Africa in general, not turning up to register, in order to participate in general elections? Because there are reports that a lot of people are not actually, registering to vote. What does it mean? Are they not educated, or what is happening?
Thank you, Chairperson. Uh, this is a very good question because it is the same case what is going on currently here in Kenya. We have people who have failed or they have resisted to go and do the registration for them to become voters so that they can be able to participate in the elections that we shall be having a general election in the month of August next year. And one of the main reasons as to why this is happening, number one, the citizens are claiming that they do not see the importance of voting. Why do they say this? It's because of what has happened or what has been done by the previous leaders who have been in position. That these people, when during campaigns, they are able to speak out as much as they can to convince the citizens to vote for them. But it happens that after they have been voted in, the promises they gave, they become a dream which is very unrealistic. And so it has come to a point that now a generation is coming up to look at, like, there is no essence of voting. If somebody is to tell you, I'll do this if you vote me in, and then later on, you don't get to accomplish that. Somebody says, I'm this way. After voting him or her in, that person changes to be another person who is different. So it is because why people are not turning up for these registrations or for voting. It is because that leaders who have been there previously, they have failed to deliver whatever they had promised before. So it has gone to a point that it has discouraged the others from participating into something that they have not seen the fruits of. And that is the main reason as to why people are failing to participate in. Another reason also, there is people who are looking at it from this angle, that we may vote for this person, but because of corruption, because of irregularities, because of lack of transparency, you'll get that the person who you voted in is not the person who is getting to that point, to that seat. And so what happens? It discourages people because somebody says, no, Ali, there is no need for you to go vote, because however much you go vote for Lloyd, Professor will be announced as the leader who has won the election. So you get that this is also a discouragement, which discourages most people, and they feel like, there is no need for me to go vote. Let it just be as it is. Of course, at the end of the day, we know who shall become the leader. So such are the reasons which are discouraging most of the people from participating into elections to come up with their leader. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Professor Washibi, all the way coming from Kenya. Thank you so much. Very quickly, I'm going to try to see if we can take Abram to come on board. Abram, can you please unmute?
Thank you very much, Ali. Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, why people, for instance, in South Africa, not turning up to register in order to participate in general elections? I'll break it down to you, Ali and Prof. Now, remember we once debated about an age of emancipation, and then young people, they cannot participate in politics because they are very young to participate in politics. The one of the important factors is that young people now, when they qualify to register to vote, they don't do that. Why? Because they don't have the political background. They don't have the political education. You understand? That is why that they are so not encouraged to vote. Number two, it will be the issues of the leadership in South Africa, in South Africa. With the whole corruptions that is taking place in South Africa, it is very disgusting. I'm telling you, Ali, that the citizens of this country are fed up. You understand what I'm saying? Now, why should I vote? Why should I register to vote? Now, we are on local municipalities. There is a load shedding in the city, Pretoria. There is a load shedding. A lot of business people are losing money. Employees are no longer going to work because there is a load shedding. People are losing their jobs. Why should I vote? You understand? There's this political party that's been in power for the past 27 years. What is it that they did to fix our country? We still get more problems for the whole 7 years. People are in power, but nothing has happened. Nothing has changed. The only thing that we have gained is that the equality between white and people, of which is not very rare in South Africa, we are still fighting for it. You understand? Now, the whole corruption issue is the one that discouraged people to go and register to vote. People are found guilty of maladministration, but yet they're still in the running business of the state. Why? Take an example of the former minister of this health minister of this country. He was found, he was accused of these tenders that he awarded to his family. But now he's a part of the panel to appoint the mayors in the organization. A very same person that was found to be corrupt. He has been moved from that position. He has been given a position to delegate people to be the mayors of the city. A very corrupt person. So how do we trust such leaders? How do we be motivated that, we are going to vote, there is a certain change? When we speak about the economy, it's worse. The majority of the citizens of this country, they are very poor. The gap between the poor and the rich is so huge. There is no socialism here in South Africa. So why should we be encouraged to vote? And no one is even trying to close that gap. You understand? I'm speaking on the point of view of the person who's saying, I'm not going to entertain politics. People are fed up. Why should we vote? But the problematic part that they do not understand is that whether they vote or not, the leadership is going to be there. At least they must seek someone who's independent, that they believe and think can move this country forward. You understand? Rather than staying and saying, which we are not going to vote. Either way, whether they vote or not, the result is going to impact them. So that is my submission to you, Ali. Corruption and lack of political education in South Africa is the cause of people not turning up to register in order to participate in general elections. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
All right, thank you so much, Advocate Abram, joining us all the way from Pretoria. I like some of the points that you actually touched. We spoke about education, that if they were educated, they will know actually how politics work. And I also like when you spoke about corruption, that corruption also is the main contributor, because especially with the ruling party now, a lot of the leaders actually starting from the health minister. Imagine the health minister has been talking all over the show, running the show, telling people about COVID-19. Eventually, there's a scandal that he stole money. There are a lot of things which have been happening, so to say. But I'm bringing in Honorable Albert Lekwana on board. I wish he can touch the issue of corruption and education before he can answer the question in general. Honorable Albert?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Ali. Yes, I think the two previous speakers, Mr. And then the professor, they said it very mouthful. But to sum up their points and also to support what they said, I think the issue of empty promises by politicians. In fact, I want us to go a little bit back and address the issue of leadership. In Africa, I think we still have a challenge of leadership, more especially political leadership, wherein and African politicians, they tend to lose themselves. They tend to lose the morals, the main cause why they are elected or why they are leading people. That is why at some point you see them making empty promises so that they can enrich themselves, and also they can reach their families and extended family members and friends and so ever. So basically, the reason why people tend to lose hope is the fact that there is a lot of empty promises. That's point number one. And secondly, because of empty promises, people are starting or citizens, they are starting to lose hope, because politicians, they cannot fulfill what they promise them. That is point number one. Point number two, politicians, they are taking advantage. In fact, in Africa, if you want to be rich, you have to be a politician. Because of the issue of corruption, you know that You can lie to the masses, convince them, and then later on they put you in a position of power and you chow money. At the end of the day, you are not going to be held liable or accountable because of the high level of corruption in Africa and in South Africa in particular. My brother once just said, just now, Floyd once just said that there are a lot of ministers now. They are charged with corruption, but they are not accountable for their deeds. What they do, they just hire another minister, redeploy that particular person to another position, which is very wrong, because each and every administration, there must be, people must account. Let's say, for example, I want to give you an example with the issue of Limpopo. By the time when Castle Matale was a premier in Limpopo, Castle Matale was never accountable, was never held accountable. Hence, he was even redeployed as a deputy minister in the highest office after having collapsed the government of Limpopo. So I think is in Africa, or in South Africa in particular, there is a high level of syndicate in the name of political leaders. They don't go there because they are representing the people, but they go there because they want to enrich themselves. They want to advantage their families. I think that's where we are losing it as Africans. I think that's where we are losing it as South Africans in particular. The issue of corruption is at the center, and also our judiciary cannot hold officials accountable because of the issue of corruption. They are being bribed left and right and center. So I think that is one of the reasons why our politicians, they are actually failing the citizen. Thank you.
You said it mouthful. Thank you so much for your point. I see that it's a matter of education, it's corruption, leadership, connections. Now let's move to Lloyd and let's hear what is Lloyd's point of view. Lloyd, quickly, recap on what the other speakers are saying. If there's anything that you want to touch, and you can also answer the question. Lloyd, can you please unmute? Wasika? Okay. It looks okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Wasika, go through.
I just have one point to support this. I can say there is a habit formation. We all understand that voting is a habit formed over time, and one possible reason for people not turning out to participate in general election is that it's less frequently, and they have had few opportunities to form or reinforce the habit. So when these people or few people come out to do their voting, they depend on the formation that is laid in place. So when the formation is not that good, people will not turn up to participate in that voting. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. Not sure if from Abram or from Prof. Oshiwi or from Honorable uh, Albert, if there's anything that one will want to touch on based on what the speakers they have brought on the floor, before we can actually move on to our third question.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Can I touch on something?
Yes, please.
Yes, I want to put it on the table, the issue of credible leadership, and also the leaders who have what so-called political will. What are we saying as colleague, more especially the issue of African politicians who keep on making empty promises to benefit themselves or to enrich their families and themselves. I'm not sure if my question is clear, but my own submission now, which I want us to look deep into, the issue of political will. Where are we losing it as Africans?
Definitely, your question is loud and clear. Let's bring Professor Bashiri first. Professor Bashiri.
Okay. I think I just wanted to add on something after I had Abraham and Albert gave a very good example of some of the corruption issues that were there in South Africa that actually makes even some of the people not to want to participate in the elections.
Yeah.
And I was
Professor
looking
Bashiri.
Professor Bashiri?
Professor
yes.
Bashiri.
Professor Bashiri?
Did you get the question from
you get the question from Albert?
Yeah, I've got a question. Yeah, that's
Okay.
true. Where
Right.
did we
Okay.
where
Right.
do we fail as Africans, right? Is that a question, Mr. Ali?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'll mention just number one that I was just to add on a point, and I was citing an example of one time we had a government official who was working heading the youth, the National Youth Service here in Kenya, and then he was charged with corruption cases whereby she was a lady and she was accused of having embezzled the funds which were meant for the youth. And then what happened that we were going to elections and she stood for a political post, and you know what, at the end she became a governor of a county. So you see, such things start discouraging people because we are looking around, and when we look at the people who are the aspirants for to be voted in, it's like you're looking at different kinds of hyenas, and so you are to rate yourself and see which hyena would you choose to go eat you up. So you see, it is something which is so discouraging that it makes people, it hampers them from participating in voting. And then from the question which Albert has just asked, that where have we failed, or what has begotten us as Africans? I'll say, as Abraham mentioned about education, there is a problem about leadership education. We have failed to understand the importance of leadership. We have failed to understand how to come up with good leaders, because the criteria that we are using to come up with the leaders is the problem. Remember, you cannot, if you choose a bad leader, you cannot expect a country to be in good state. You cannot expect things to be good. So where we have failed is we as Africans, we have failed to look at our own selves, understand what Africa is, understand what we need as Africa, and in which way are we going to achieve it. But we are just doing things in a way as if we are blindfolded, and that is the problem. We have a lot of ignorance. We like assuming issues, and we just say, let it be. It will just be that way. Instead of standing out and standing on the truth to fight for our rights, and fight for honesty and transparency, that even the government can stand up and be transparent and do issues in the way that it should be. I don't know if I've answered your question, Albert. Thank you.
Right. Albert can also come on board if the question was not yet answered.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Okay. Professor, very quickly, before you go from the mic, Professor, very quickly before I take Wasike, Professor, very quickly in less than a minute, what are the major causes of political corruption in Africa?
I'll jump.
Okay, major causes of political corruption. Number one the major causes why there is corruption in Kenya, number one, or just in Africa, political corruption, I'll say it is greedy, thirsty for power, and fame. And then wrong choice of leadership, wrong criteria for selecting leadership. Those are those which I can mention that are the major causes of political corruption. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Professor Washibi. Let's move to Wasike. Wasike.
Okay, thank you so much. Just to add on that, we have political instability. Then the other main cause is the lack of rule of law. Then lastly, we have the failure of governance. Those will cause a lot of corruption. I will cause political corruption.
Okay. Very quickly, let's move to Honorable Albert.
Yes, thank you once more. I think the major causes of political corruption is the colonial masters. Remember, all the politicians in Africa and South Africa in particular, majority of them, they are being sponsored abroad. So as a result, the colonial masters, they give our politicians large amount of money so that they can campaign, firstly. Secondly, so that they can have resources to campaign and also to run their rallies and so on and so on. The main measure is the colonial masters, because later on, when they put you into power as a politician, they give you money, they sponsor you so that you can be in power. Later on, they are going to demand, in your country, they are going to demand to offer services. So I think the main reason is the fact that colonial masters, they come with money, they give the politicians. Once the politicians take those money, they are captured. That's where the problem lies. The issue of colonial masters who come to Africa, give our politicians money, and then once they have got their money, they know that they can control them. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you so much, Honorable Abram. Very quickly, let's move to Advocate Abram. Advocate Abram.
Okay, thank you very much, Ali, and the panel. I wanted to reflect on the previous question very quickly, and then, but I will also include the question of what are the major political causes of corruption. So, Ali, one thing also that I've learned is that, we have led our leaders to be comfortable where they are. Understand? We don't want them to account. That is one of the problems.
Okay. Honorable Abram.
Okay, Ali, I'm here. So we don't make them to account. You understand? If there is a certain part of corruption that has been committed or omitted, the first thing that they do, the government is to do what? The judiciary do what? They set a inquiry. Now we had an inquiry of the state capture for how long, and then it has costed us more than 2 billion to date. Yet we have not even received any recommendations or the outcomes of the inquiry, but we have already spent 2 billion on it. Now, people who are being implicated in that, till to date, no one is being arrested. No one is to account. You understand? So the problem relies on us as the citizens. We allow our leaders to be to be comfortable with what they are doing. That is why the corruption issue will never end. And then number two, the most measures that causes political corruption is that, you know, South Africans have been way too hungry. You know, they've been in poverty way too long. When they come into power, the first thing they save is not the people, but their pockets. You understand, Ali? You know, now, this leads to us, our leaders, they're not having the best interest of our people, but they save what? They save their pocket. Now, let's speak, for instance, of the example of the president of South Africa. We know that he does not represent the black people. He does not represent the majority of the citizens of this country. Actually, he represents the certain individual families, the Minels and the Ruperts. If you're a president, Ali, how can you allow the state-owned entities, the things, the business that generates money for the country to be sold, to be privatized? Let us think it clear. How can you allow things that are generating money for your country to be sold to the private individuals? Is it this person thinking about the country or himself? Is it this person thinking of the country or thinking of enriching himself? They will tell us that the state SOEs are collapsing, but who's collapsing them? Who's running the business state of the country?
Very quickly, Advocate Abram, before you go off, can you take this fourth question in less than a minute? How does, political corruption affect the society?
No, this is a very good question.
In less than a minute?
This thing affects the society very bad. It gives a very negative impact. Let's take a look at the community of Hammanskraal. Since they've been struggling with water, clean, healthy water, till to date, no one has ever went to Hammanskraal. Within the leadership of the government, no one has addressed that issue. No one is attempting to fix that issue. Because what? When the tenders are out, money are out, they don't go to the municipalities, they go to the pockets of other people. Now people are struggling. So people, they stand to allow themselves to settle in an healthy environment. Why? Because the leaderships are chowing money there at the top. People are struggling to get houses. People are struggling to get roads. Why? Yeah. Because of the corruption. So this thing has affected the society bad, and they're already losing hope to our country leadership.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much, Advocate Abram. That is Advocate Abram actually sharing us live from South Africa. I know this guy. He's passionate about this thing. It's actually one of the conveyors or leaders of a certain political party. Quite interesting topic to have him on board. Let's move to Honorable Albert Lekwana. What is your reaction? How does political corruption affect our society? In less than 2 minutes, what is your reaction?
Thank you once more, Ali. And thank you, my advocate, for saying it mouthful. But to add on what advocate just said, it affects the political corruption affects society greatly. Why? Because the society need a service delivery, and a service delivery, there must be money that must be administered so that services can be given to people. So as a result, politicians hijack the money that must help the communities develop the roads and also to give communities houses, those basic services. Politicians hijack them. they steal the money. So as a result, community end up suffering or not getting services. Why? Because of corruption. So it's affecting communities very greatly because politicians take the money that was supposed to service the communities, they take them because of their own greed, because of their own selfishness. They take their money to their own pockets and to their own families. So as a result, families will suffer because of one individual called a politician. So that is why I'm saying it's affecting the communities because corruption delay service delivery.
What is your submission, Honorable Albert?
My submission is one and is one only. African people must go back to the root. Remember, as African, we used to care for each other. Let's say, for example, Ali, if we are neighbors, at your home you don't have a soul, you were able to come to my home and get a soul or get a maize meal. But I think we have lost that culture. We are now living like isolated individuals, and that is not our culture. Our culture is togetherness. Our culture is to live together. Our culture is to care for each other. So I think our leaders must go back to the drawing board and restore the moral compass of Africanness in them, because we are not the Europeans. We are Africans who are always caring for each other. Remember, if someone is taking the public money for his own private pocket, that person is no longer an African, but is something else. He's no longer caring for Africans or the neighbors or the community, but for his own self. We are not like that as Africans. The reason why, for your own information, Mr. Malekan, the reason why we are colonized is because of our Ubuntu, is because of we welcomed everyone. As African, we used to live like that. So I think our leaders, they tend to forget the fact that we are one. They tend to forget the fact that we are together in the struggle. We are no longer caring for each other. We have lost that moral compass.
What's your
so
conclusion?
my conclusion in a nutshell, I think the moral compass and the consciousness within our leader must be restored. They must go back to the root, basically. Because even though you say you held the leaders accountable, at the end of the day, these cadres or these leaders, they've got the way to maneuver within the justice system of each and every country. So I think the issue of morals of our forefathers must come back. And how can that come back? In the educational system of our countries, we must also teach the young ones, where are we coming from? Those morals. I think there must be a subject where we teach our young ones those morals, the roots of African, to be an African. So that when they assume the position of responsibility, they will be having this in their mind. So in a way, let's try to indoctrinate them with an African mindset of our forefathers. Thank you.
All right. All right. Thank you so much, Honorable Lekona, all the way coming from South Africa in the province of Limpopo. I like his submission. It's actually a compiled one. Let's move to our brother in Kenya, Waseki. How does political corruption affect the society?
Okay, it's going to affect the society in this way. It's going to cause impunity and partial justice to the people. For example, when corruption pervades the justice system, people will no longer count on the prosecutors and judges to do their jobs. Why? Because one of the things, the powerful people may escape the justice, and the citizen, especially those who are going to be those who have few power allies may be unfairly accused of a crime, and sometimes they're going to be deprived of due to the process, and they may end up going to prison for the mistake that they have not done. So, for us to come out of this, the judicial system of our nations in Africa, they need to stand on their post, and they need to stand on their post so that they can protect the right of these citizens from the political corruption. For example, in our nation, Kenya, there are many instances whereby powerful people or those people who came on board, they had several cases of murder cases. You find them not being detained in court. They pay a certain amount of money to release on their bond. But you find a person, for example, was just a normal thief. This person may end up going to prison, but the main chick in this process is not going to be arraigned in court or not going to be detained in prison. So lastly, it's just that our courts or our justice system has to be reorganized or has to be that powerful to protect the people. Thank you.
So much. Thank you so much, our brother Wasiki, all the way coming from Kenya. I am not sure whether it's Kenya Nairobi or Kenya. Where is it? Kenya Nairobi.
Yeah, it's Kenya Nairobi.
All right. Now let's move to Professor Washiri. Professor Washiri, what is your submission in terms of how does political corruption affect our society? Your submission, Professor Washiri?
Your submission, Professor Washiri?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Once again, my submission on how does political corruption affect the society. I'll say that currently in the world that we are living now, you see that most the main thing that everybody is complaining about, number one, is corruption, and even in our country, the number one problem that we are having is corruption. And this corruption, how does it affect us as the society? You get that this is the reason as to why the promises that have been made by the leaders to the people are not being delivered because of people who have come up to be so much greedy. They're taking up that which was meant for the people, and so as you see, you'll get that majority of the people remain living under the poverty line. Majority of the people they don't have the access to basic needs because that the resources have been held by just specific people. You get that so many people actually are living in poverty, while the few who are in leadership, they have taken all the resources, they've taken all the funds. So it really, really affects, it leads to an equal distribution of resources around the nation. People are living in poverty, people don't have what to eat, people are suffering, there is no water, there is no quality education, health is a problem. So all this is because of corruption. Funds which are meant to go help individuals are going to help one person in particular and leaving the rest. So corruption is an issue that is so bad. And maybe, Mr. Ali, sorry for this, but just to touch on the previous issue, which was a cause of corruption, I wanted to point it out. I heard there is one who was complaining of the colonial officers. I'll say that currently Africa, we are the problem, we are the cause for our own problems, and we don't have to blame the colonial masters, mostly for the most African countries. It is because currently we are independent physically, but we have failed to be independent minded. That is why we still allow those guys to come and rule us. That's why we still allow those people to engage in business with us, giving us money for us to go use in campaigns and so for later on to go pay them back. I'll blame the citizens for standing up to accept being bribed by politicians who are aspirants for them to take that money, whether it is 100 South African rands or 100 Kenyan shillings, in order for them to vote. If a leader has to pay you first, has to bribe you before you vote for him or her, that means you are the one who is bringing corruption into the country. And so, not unless we stand against that and look on the leadership qualities that we need, we are still the problem, the cause of the problem to ourselves. Thank you, Mr.
All right. Thank you so much, Professor Washiwi. Very quickly, Professor, before you wrap up, in less than a minute and 30 seconds, Professor, how does the political corruption affect the economy of your country, or the economy of my country where I'm based, or the economy of Africa as a whole? Professor Washiwi?
As a whole. Professor Washiwi?
Just to wrap up that how does political corruption affect the economy? I'll point out that indeed corruption affects the economy of the country very much. Currently in Kenya, we are having a problem. The price of fuel is rising day after day. The price of commodities is rising day after day. The transport, the fare for you to move from one place to another. People are having difficulties even in acquiring food because the tax elevation has been elevated. Even just for sending a message via the networks, everything has been accelerated. So it means that when we have corruption, corrupt leaders in place, and it is a problem because corrupt leaders cannot fight corruption, yet they themselves are corrupt. So it has really affected the economy that now people they don't have money. People are living under poverty, but the money has been taken away from them. So you don't have access to, you don't have that you don't have that economic stability. You cannot access your basic needs, and the taxation revenue is going up and up. So you see that it really is really an issue that is really, I'll say, it is exploiting, compressing, and really making people to suffer under poverty because of corruption.
All right. Thank you so much, Professor Washiri. Very quickly, I'll move to Albert, back to South Africa. Honorable Albert, in less than 2 minutes, how does the political corruption affect the economy of Africa or of your country?
Yes, thank you very much, and also let me thank the professor for the input. Yes, I strongly believe that corruption affects our economy greatly. Why? Because I want to give an example with South African politicians. There is a lot of cash that is going through. More especially, let's say, for example, in South Africa, there is a situation where when candidates are canvassing, there is a lot of cash that they pay for people to actually vote for them. So in a way, I can say it is actually affecting the
Okay. It looks like we lost Albert. Not sure if it could be the power failure or not, because I'm aware that in South Africa we are experiencing power cuts because they're preparing for elections, which they have already started today, special elections for local municipality, and also tomorrow. And yeah, starting from the 1st of November, it's Monday. It will be a public holiday. We all have to go and vote for our local leaders. Not sure if it could be load shedding, but I believe that Honorable Albert should be back on board. I just want to bring back Wasike. Wasike, very shortly, how does the political corruption affect the economy of your country of Africa as a whole?
Chair. And from this point of view, political corruption affects the economy by one, it distorts incentives and market forces, which leads to misallocation of resources. Then number two, it acts as an inefficient tax on business, ultimately by raising
Okay. Are you still there?
sorry, do you get me?
Yes, we get you. Yes, we get you.
Okay, I say that it acts as an inefficient tax on business, ultimately raising the production cost and reducing the profitability of investments. So when a country is undergoing a political corruption, first of all, the taxpayers' money is going to be wasted on the other matters of the politicians, because the money that the taxpayers are going to pay for their businesses, for the economic growth, is going to be wasted by the government. So that means that the investment that the people as a country of the continent of Africa will not grow again, because the money is going to be wasted. So I can end from there, from this place. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, I admire your submission. Before we can wrap up in terms of your submission, I also want to ask you
Yeah.
this question again. How does the corruption actually affect the human rights of Africans? There's a way in which I can tell you that this corruption, it does actually affect the human rights of people. From your general understanding, how does it actually affect the human rights of people? It could be in South Africa, it could be in Kenya, it could be anywhere in the African region or in the world. How does corruption actually affect the human rights?
Okay, first of all, I know uh, women have the right, or any person has the right to carry on their daily businesses or their daily activities. For example, when we come on trading activity, you may find that many people are carrying out trade. Many people are involving that themselves in investment companies. But when it comes on the sector of corruption, the businesses are not going to work, and that it is the right of the people to do that business. So when people are doing that business and there is corruption, it's going to affect their areas. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair.
All right. Thank you so much, my brother. Very quickly, let's bring Honorable Albert back on the board before we can move to Professor Washiwi. Honorable Albert.
Yes, thank you very much. I just went offline because of data, of course.
Yeah.
Hence,
Your question.
I did not fully answer the issue of how does political corruption affect the economy.
Yes,
Yes, let me start with that one quickly, and then I'll go to the current question. It affects the economy in such a way that it discourages the investors. Investors, they cannot invest in a country where there is high level of corruption. Remember, when you're talking about investing, we're talking about people bringing money to your country so that they can create jobs and so that they can have development in your country. As a result, they will also benefit. But then, if they don't have an assurance that your country is stable in terms of corruption, there is no way that the investor can risk his or her own money to your country. So basically, corruption discourages investors, and as a result, if there are no investors, obviously the economy cannot grow. To answer the current question, how does corruption affect human rights? It affects human rights greatly. Remember, each and every person in, let's say, for example, in South Africa, has got the right for basic services, basic need, the right for education, for example. So if instead of people or our leaders making sure that the citizen have got the right to basic education, instead of building the schools, instead of delivering those basic services such as water, such as building houses, they take the money for themselves. As a result, is undermining the right of the people, because each and every citizen in South Africa has got the right for basic services. I'm not sure if I'm clear in terms of what I'm trying to explain here.
Yes, you are direct. We can hear you. And you are
Yes.
quite loud.
So basically, it undermines the citizen's right, the basic right, because people chow the money instead of giving the public or the citizen their basic right for education, right for health.
Okay. It looks like it's just having a problem in terms of connection, but I believe that we'll go through. Yeah, Professor. Very quickly, let's wrap up. Let's conclude the show. We are almost running out of time. Your final submission, Professor, and also final submission from Wasiki. What are your submission in terms of what you've spoke about? How do you conclude the show, and how do you pass the message to our brothers and sisters who have been listening to the show? Your submission, we are wrapping up the show. Professor Washiri, unmute.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ali. So just to wrap up, my final submission, firstly, I like to mention that it is very, very important for citizens of any nation in Africa to participate in voting process in order to elect their leaders. Secondly, it is important for citizens of any nation in Africa to use the right criteria to select the leader who shall get to resolve whatever is the problem that we are going through as Africans, but not to be convinced by empty promises, by being given money, t-shirts or whatever, and then they end up saying that this is the person we want, not to be convinced by the tribe or the origin of somebody, where he or she is coming from. But let us know that if we are to fight corruption, it starts with us. We are the one to say no to corruption and fight corruption. And it is very true that corruption is affecting the human rights, the economy, the society, and everything. So let us stand as citizens, participate in election, participate in active voting, and choose the right leaders. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Professor Washiwi. Very quickly, we're wrapping up the show. Wasiki, what is your conclusion to the show? Message to African.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Tonight, this is my conclusion that let African rise, let the people of Africa open their eyes. Let them not close their eyes. Let them open their eyes and see the great future of Africa. Let them stop corruption in Africa. Let them stand for their rights and allow the mind to work towards achieving the goal they have for their nation. Thank you so much.
All right, definitely all the more speakers all coming along from Kenya, Nairobi, and all those come from South Africa, and a lot of ones joining. Yes, I agree. We have the right to life, we have the right to protection from slavery, the right to health, the right to property, the right to education, the right to work, the right to participate in one's government, the right to adequate standard of living, the right to non-discrimination. I definitely understand that. To all my speakers who have been joining in, Honorable Abram from South Africa, Honorable Lloyd also joining us here from Lloyd Wasike, all joining us live from Kenya, Nairobi. Professor Washiwi also joining us live from Nairobi, Kenya, and all those who are able to join us and listen to the podcast on different platforms. I take this time and thank you so much for joining the show. It's an honor actually always having you guys to come on the show. And I see that we have Waseki. Waseki, thank you so much for taking your time to come and join the show. We'll always invite you whenever when you're available.
Thank you so much.
All right, Professor Bashiri, thank you so much for your time. Good night.
Good night.
Good night to Mr. Ali.